All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coug Connect for Thursday, September 17. And I hope you're staying healthy wherever you are, and your family members and friends also are being safe and healthy. Just got a text a little while ago from a good college buddy of mine, a friend, that she and her wife they were scheduled to move today, and then they're one of those areas of Oregon where some of the air quality is really bad. So our thoughts are with them too. Anyway, welcome to Coug Connect today. This topic that was advertised was self-talk. I added on a little bit more, and performance. So how our brains and our own thoughts drive our performance, both poor performance as well as good performance. So welcome. We are going to go over a little bit of some of the previous information and tie this all together and continue that journey around how our self-talk interacts with the process in our mind and motivation and so forth. So jumping right in, just to do some of the review stuff, once again, that if you've joined before on some of the sessions I've done, you've seen the process of thought. We've talked about this mechanism or process in which our day-to-day actions, as the stimulus come into us, into our conscious mind, unknowingly or knowingly, we dump down into this storage chamber of ours called the subconscious. And based on what's in there, all the values and beliefs and truths and so forth, tends to drive our outward performance based on whatever that stimulus is and how we respond to that. So we're going to tie the self-talk cycle into that particularly. Along the way, we've also taken a look at how we can repattern and grow new patterns and continue to strengthen patterns, and also the idea of patterns that maybe are no longer as useful for us. The less we use those, and this becomes a real key, the less we use those patterns, the science behind it does tend to show that those patterns and those neuron connections and so forth tend to prune off over time and or just lose their strength, so to speak. The pattern just isn't used as much. Once again, the self-talk cycle will tie into that as well. So let's just jump right in, get some of the definitional stuff. The first thing, self-talk. So what is that? So one way, just a layman's term, is how I talk to myself, how I react to my evaluation and others' evaluations of me, my performance, and so forth. It can start as early as when we wake up in the morning, right? Some of those early thoughts as soon as we start to get up out of bed. And am I saying things like, oh, I don't want to get up, oh, I'm so tired, or whatever. You know, we may not be saying it out loud, maybe we do, but in our brains we're thinking that. The other side of that is, oh, another day, I wonder what's going to happen today. I'm looking forward to whatever's going to come my way, all those kinds of things. So a much more positive aspect. It starts that early as far as where those self-talk and beliefs start to happen. So the next part that we also tie into the cycle is called the self-image. And our self-image is the accumulation of all those attitudes. So think back to that subconscious mind piece that we talked on the slide earlier. The accumulation of all the attitudes and opinions that I have perceived about myself. And they tend to form pictures in our mind of who we are, how we operate, and so forth. And then the last part of that is the outcome or the performance of that. So how I act based on my self-image. So all of that ties back to that process of thought that we were talking about. So this cycle just continues to go from one to the other to the other. And over time, can it change? Certainly, because if you were with me on one earlier session, I even mentioned, think back to when you were 15 years old or 10 years old, and some of the goofy behaviors that perhaps we did, or some of the thoughts about groups of people I should be around or shouldn't be around, or trying to approach a friend or a new person. All of those things when we were 10 or 15 might be quite different now that we're 25, 35, 45, 69, whatever the case may be. It does change over time, but it tends to be the predominant picture that we hold in our minds of who we are. So that's where the whole idea of the self-talk cycle becomes very important. We're going to tie that into those patterning things in just a moment, but try to keep that in mind, is what I'm saying to myself becomes very important. You may not think of it this way, but this is one area you might want to consider, which is how you talk to yourself is very powerful. You are a powerful person, and your mind will believe what you're telling it. Good side or bad side, it's going to believe it. So the trick becomes, I guess, and it's not really a trick, it's the process of getting those new patterns in there to keep focusing on opportunity, positivity, openness to new experience, and learning new things. So another way to summarize it is with these three bubbles is that your thoughts create feelings, right? And those emotional responses, those feelings that we get, both positive and negative, are very powerful for us. Those feelings create behaviors. It drives whether we go forward towards something or we tend to step back and hold back, remove ourselves from other activities. And oops, sorry about that. My finger hit the wrong button. And then the behaviors that we're doing tend to reinforce those thoughts. See, I always act like that, or see, what would you expect? I'm known to do that. And those that are around us, our loved ones, tend to reinforce that too. Oh, honey, you know, that's just like you to forget your keys. Or, oh, you know, you're just like that to seek out new opportunities. Or, oh, you're a person that really goes for it. You know, when we hear those from the outside or even from the inside, it's causing those feelings to respond, drive our behaviors, and the cycle tends to then repeat itself. So keep that in mind. I'm going to back step here just a little bit and go back. Now that we've got those definitions in place, let's come back here. We've got this storage chamber. It's got a lot of stuff in there, depending on how old you are and how much you perceive things and think about them. And I'll reinforce the idea of there's a lot of stuff that's in there that perhaps we don't consciously can maybe identify sometimes. It's little patchworks that have been collected over our whole life. There is one school of thought that says that what's stored in here, whether it's right, wrong, good, or bad for us, whatever is stored in there, it gets stored on every experience that we've had throughout our lives. Now, the ones that we tend to focus on and really consciously try to improve or to move away from and go a different direction, those get reinforced and strengthened, and those tend to become then that new dominant thought that drives the pictures in our minds. So the patterning, once again, remember it starts off with just a small, simple electronic pattern. If it's something brand new to you, let's say I'm watching one of Alice, I see Alice is on here, Alice Ma's sessions on kombucha, right? And brewing your own kombucha. I first became aware of the term probably 3 or 4 years ago. I lived in the Seattle area, and I heard people talking about it, and I'm like, the name to me, here's how this self-talk stuff works. The name to me sounded odd, different. I didn't have a good or a bad around it. It was just like, what is this? Just a marketing campaign? Somebody trying to get me to drink new stuff, and it's probably the same as everything else that's out there. I'm not even going to pay attention to it. So I didn't investigate it, didn't dive into it further, didn't know what it was. I just kind of went, it's a nothing for me in my brain. Now, there's just a small little thing, right? It's neither here nor there, but it's the same stuff of what we do whenever we're encountering new opportunities, new people, new ways to educate ourselves, new ways to deliver information remotely. How do I deal with the smoke conditions that are out there now? How do I deal with all the COVID stuff and the rules and the regulations? And what do I think about, gee, the Pac-12 should be playing football or shouldn't be playing football? All of that stuff, the myriad of thoughts that we get day in and day out, all start with that self-talk cycle. So once again, we take a look at that and identify for ourselves, and you can start tying in some of our other sessions as well. The mindfulness sessions, practicing mindfulness reinforces many of the concepts that underlay what this self-talk cycle is all about. Being able to focus the thought and just focus on things that you want to keep in your mind and keep foremost in your mind, that are positive, that are good for you, that assist with your health and your condition in life, how we deal with, many of us don't go out and socialize as much as we did pre-COVID. We're waiting for all of that to get past us. Any of those things all starts to come back to how we're talking to ourselves around it and how that drives our self-image and then ultimately our performance. So another one to keep in mind right there, thoughts create feelings, feelings create the behaviors, and behaviors reinforce that. So that cycle, where do I choose to break it? It's those thoughts that we just talked about in our process of thought that we looked at earlier. So here's where that visualization and affirmations, very similar to the mindfulness stuff, this is where you can start changing the cycle. So one of the first things that I practice with this, and quite frankly, it's good for me to jump back into this kind of thing. I hadn't really consciously been thinking about these concepts in the process of thought and repatterning and so forth very much over my last 10 years or so. I used it a whole lot as I went through my career. My undergraduate degree was in park administration and outdoor recreation. I was going to be a park ranger in my mind at 22 years of age, right? So I get my degree from Washington State University. Shortly thereafter, Darcy and I got married, and the reality in my brain was, oh, I better get a job. I'm married now. I got to be responsible. So I get out there and I start going around. I was putting my application in all over the place, and I was all excited to go become a park ranger. Now, my ideal in my mind was to join the National Park Service, really be Smokey the Bear with my nice little hat and all that other stuff, and be out there in the national parks. Well, that I found out very early on. I didn't realize I should have started about 5 summers earlier, volunteering at the national parks, getting on seasonal positions after that. And then after you get your degree and you start to know the system and the people, then you have a much better shot at actually getting on. So I made a decision, wow, that's going to take me probably 3 more years. I need a job now. So I started with the state park system. I was going to be state park ranger or wherever it could get. And long story short, ended up doing recreational programming up in Seattle for the Department of Social and Health Services, working with developmentally disabled. Brand new field, didn't ever expect to go that route, and I really enjoyed it, met a lot of great people along the way, and it was a great opportunity for me. But at some point in time, my mind went, I am going to do something different. I can't believe this, but I'm actually going to go get a master's degree. Had never considered it. Now, this is about the time when I was starting to think I need to do something different with my life. And my thoughts were, where's this going to come from? I can still remember that. Where's this going to come from? And about that time, I got a job opportunity, a rotational assignment into a group of senior training folks with the Department of Social and Health Services that was talking about this type of information. And we learned from one of the best. And I'm going to give you one name that you can Google, and the associated organization that I think has some really good, a lot of their information is definitely a fee-based type of thing, but they also have some freebies. And I think it's good stuff that's right along this line. And it's called the Pacific Institute. They're based out of the Seattle area. Their founder, Lou Tice, was the one that was behind developing a lot of these concepts. He did a lot of research down at UCLA around these types of things. And this is where I was first exposed to the process of thought and how our brains are, all that neuroplasticity that we talked about. And this is the roots of everything that comes along here. And one of the pieces was the visualization. All of that to say, I used this around overcoming that fear of public speaking. Some of you may have joined me on that one session. And that's where you use the whole cycle to start driving performance. Because before, if you go back to the cycle, right up here, how I would talk to myself when I perceived a speaking event was, oh, I don't do that. And I had to change that little pattern into, wow, a speaking engagement. I wonder what I'm going to learn this time. I wonder who I'm going to get to meet. I wonder what I'm going to take forward from that experience that's coming up to help me with the next one. Every talk, every engagement that I had to do that, I started to look forward to rather than being nervous and afraid I'd mess it up or say something stupid or whatever the case would be. It was always, wow, what am I going to learn this time? It's dress rehearsal to get better for the next one. And that's what I changed. One little change on that starts to stimulate different outcomes, different patterns for you. So my point for you would be to identify where you want to make those changes. Sometimes they are accidental, they just happen. And you go, wow, where'd that come from? And then you start going, I'm going to get better at this. So you start visualizing and finding out, you start researching things, you start learning things. Gee, with the internet nowadays, and we can learn so much. We have to watch out for fake news, I realize that. But you have these opportunities to take this information and grow the mind in different directions that you never knew that you could before. So feel that outcome. Practice mindfulness, really experience it through your body. It helps reinforce the mind's take and remembrance on these things. Get that complete immersion into it, if you will. Always remember though, anything that you're trying to change, there's always a price you have to pay. Maybe you have to give up something from the past. Maybe you have to gain something that you didn't know you could before and put in extra effort. There's always something that goes along with that outcome that you're trying to achieve. So just remember, that's always behind it. But if you want it strong enough, you don't let anything deter you. You keep using these principles and practices to move yourself forward. So, whoops, we already did that. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's the last one. I'd like you to think just for a moment. I just want you to use the chat box real quick to your comfort level. What's one place that you can think of that you can practice using all the mindfulness techniques we've done, the self-talk cycle and how that reinforces new behaviors and grow forward into new things that you might want to take on. So whether it's a topic from one of the KU Connects, whether it's something you've read recently, it's a new thing that you want to try doing, to your comfort level, how about popping it in the chat box as far as areas that you could use this to help you grow, help you change and move forward. So anybody that's with me and wanting to change and put that in there, anybody gonna put it in the chat box for me today? Or did I lose everybody? Looks like you're still out there. Oh, okay. I know this can be scary when you start talking about, ooh, he's asking me to change or do something different. All right. Well, whatever it is for you, I hope it grows forward well for you. Just remember repetition. Got to keep focused on where you want to be going with whatever it is you're taking on. Tie positive emotions into it. So don't let other distractions and events of the world and people in your lives deter you from that. Always focus back on what the positive outcomes are and always have that expectation of growth and you'll keep moving forward. So with that, I just want to start bringing it to a close. Yeah, feel free to ping me on a WSU email if you want to. It's donald.reed@wsu.edu if you have further questions or comments around that. Want to alert forward to next, whoops, that should say Tuesday. I'm sorry that I didn't change the date. It's Dr. Jamie Nolan is going to be with us and we're going to have a special half hour. We're going to be doing a lot of social media advertising on this today, tomorrow, and Monday. But just know that like we had with Obie Ford joining us for a special presentation a couple weeks ago, we're going to have Dr. Jamie Nolan joining us and talk about current 2021 initiatives in the community equity and social justice arena that she is a member of and heads up. So I hope you can join us for that next Tuesday, and we'll see you at that point in time. Thanks, everybody. Glad you were here today.